Welcome back to Tim's Project Car, where we're demonstrating that we can produce a good hot rod even in an old tool shed. Providing information as best I can as I build this car. Please like and subscribe. Well, I have a drive shaft in. Wound up having to order one from Speedway Motors because I couldn't get the right adapter U-joints, and I didn't have the heart to cut the original drive shaft anyway, because in case I decide to backtrack and put the car back to original. So I got it through Speedway Motors. It was $400. Got the all new parts in it, and it fits well. Okay, here we are. We're beginning with the X pipe. I welded on the first piece. These were meant, the kit was supposed to slip fit these, but they didn't expand them properly, so I'm just butt welding them up and taking careful measurement. So the way this has to be done is this side goes to the passenger side header. So I'm going to have this bolted up to the header when I'm ready underneath the car, and then I'm going to fit this piece to the other side, and it'll be tacked in place underneath the car. Then it'll be pulled out and welded solid after. That way I could get this distance apart exactly right. Now this distance apart is just about 18 inches, but because metal moves and so on when welding, you have to take extra care unless you want to end up having to use a pry bar to hook it up. So on to the next step. All right, I have the passenger side header pulled off, and here's a look at the whoop-de-doo that I made. It wasn't too substantial, but it needed to be done to make room for the cross member, so this goes right underneath the cross member here. I have the header wrap. I'm going to begin wrapping the headers now, and hopefully when that's done I could put it back on with the header gasket so it'll be in its final living space and move on. Okay, here I've wrapped this header up with a header wrap. I've tried to get pretty good coverage through certain areas, like underneath here where the plug wires will be, because I run my plug wires underneath. And in here where the starter is going to be, because this is a passenger side header, and you also got to consider the transmission cooler lines go past here, and you don't want to be cooking any of those things. On the outside, the gas line goes through, but it largely goes inside the frame rail, so that's protected somewhat. But regardless, there's header wrap in most places. I don't know if it adds horsepower or not, but it does save on wiring, and it saves on starters for sure. Okay, here's the header reinstalled. As you can see, there's a couple places like this didn't reach as far as I thought. I'll probably have to see if I have a couple of remnants left to touch up after the fact. I have another head to do, so I'll catch those up after. But overall it looks pretty good, and as you can see with things all together, like the transmission cooler lines will be pretty close, however I snake them through there. And the gas line, it's hard to see. Okay, now you can see where the gas line comes through, and I'm not sure how the cooler lines are going to come through, because it's going to be hard. They're going to have to come through underneath that number 2 pipe in between the motor mount and that. So I have to be a bit careful about clearances, as well as making sure things are wrapped up well. So now it's time to pull off the other header and get to work on that one. That's just here over here. And of course you have brake lines that are close by, and you have plug wires. So there's not as many things, but there are still some things that have to be protected by these headers. Not to mention my hands when I'm working on the car. Well, it appears to me like I used more than half of my header wrap for the first header, so we'll see how far we get with this one. I rather predict I'm going to end up buying more, so we'll see what we get. Well, here it is. The driver's side header is back on with the header wrap put on it. Did better than I thought. My estimate was I was running out of header wrap, but I actually have a little bit left over. So, a little roll there for fixing things and touching up, you know, because the stuff can move when you're trying to install it. And like this header here, I'm going to have to put another short piece to cover that, and the one in the back, number 8. But for the purpose of working on the X-pipe, they're back on again, so I can get going on that and maybe get an exhaust on this thing. Okay, here I have the X-pipe underneath the car hooked to the passenger side. I've added on this piece here because when I test fitted it was a bit short, so we're going to see where we're at there. And so in a second here, let's go underneath the car and see how close I am. Okay, there's the X-pipe. It's bolted to the other header there, and so now we'll see how well this goes together. So this is going to be butt welded when I'm done, once I'm fairly certain that I have the length about right. Okay, so this end is a bit long, but I have to go in a little bit, so I'm going to trim the far end. So this far end here I'm going to trim off just a little bit and then test fit again. Alright, we have the test fitting done and I've tacked it together. So now I have to just remove the assembly so I can put it up on the bench and weld it solid nicely. But as you can see, it's coming together. Okay, here's the part. Has a few, you know, biscuits in there along the way, but it's made and it'll fit on. So now next step is to just put it under the car and bolt it up. Okay, here it is. The X-pipe is in. Next step, of course, is to start traveling back and put the mufflers in, but right now we're looking pretty good here. The fit's not too bad. It's below that cross member, but it's not terribly below. If you look where these clamps go, they're about even with the bottom of the header, so I haven't given up any clearance really. I would of course like it higher up than it is, but that's probably the reality of how these things go. And this of course will be, it's actually probably won't be raised a whole lot. I expect I will work out a hanger somewhere along the way here, and then hangers for where I put the mufflers. So this is going to be good. It's going to get done. So as everyone sees, I show everything, pimples and all, just to let people know that, you know, not everybody has all the resources, but you could still do a nice piece if you try.